All eyes in Boston are on the Celtics. But are the Red Sox sneakily putting together a winner?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and this is my sixth full season here as a member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where I'm not just hosting this show every day, but I'm also hosting Locked On A's every single day. Life can be strange. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits to other things that I don't quite understand with a car, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guarantee fit only available to U.S. customers. Sorry, Blue Jays fans. But you may notice that I have a different border on this show if you're watching me on the YouTubes. And that's because this is a crossover show. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time this regular season, I believe, we have the host of Locked On Red Sox. It's Gabby Hurlbut. How you doing, Gabby?
Hi, Sully. I am doing fantastic, and you are right. It is the first show we've done together since the season started, so that's pretty cool.
Well, there you go. And again, all Boston eyes, even tonight, are on the Celtics, as some of the other teams have done a wonderful job of opening up some doors for the Celtics and say, like, do you not want to face the Knicks? Do you not want to face the Nuggets? Do you not want to face the Thunder? Watch it be Indiana versus Minnesota in the finals, of which I ask, wait, which one is East and which one is West in that matchup? But that's neither here nor there. Before we do anything, I have a trivia question to bring up, and unfortunately it involves the Yankees, but this was from the trivia question the other day. The question was, what team that went on, what is the longest losing streak for a team that went on to eventually win the World Series? What is the longest losing streak for a team to go on to win the World Series? I got a lot of people guessing the 2000 Yankees, but they had a 7-game losing streak. The correct answer is the 1953 Yankees, who had a 9-game losing streak in the middle of their season, but it didn't really make much of a difference because they had like a 12-game lead and they wound up whittling it down to like 6 games. So they were fine. But yes, Scott Horsemeyer, who's an everyday Sully listener, got that one correct. Okay, enough talk about the Yankees. I feel sick to my stomach right now that I even brought them up. Gabby, let's talk a little bit before we dive into the Red Sox and their kind of strange season that they're having so far. Their kind of unpredictable season they're having so far. Let's talk a little bit right now about the AL East in general. I think most people, including me, I picked the Orioles. I thought the Yankees were going to have a rough time of it coming off of near 500 season and then losing Garrett Cole. But the Yankees have stepped up in a way that I didn't think they were going to. And the Blue Jays, on the other hand, maybe selling. What are your thoughts right now about the state of the AL East and the other teams in the division right now?
Yeah, I also picked the Orioles to win the division going into it. I still think the Orioles are going to win the division. I think they are the most complete team in the AL East right now. And the Yankees definitely have been surprising in a positive way for them this year in terms of
nicely phrased, positive for them. Yes.
Yeah, definitely not for me, but
right.
They have definitely been performing a lot better than I thought, especially from a pitching standpoint. I didn't quite trust that their pitching was going to be able to be as competitive as they have been. So I'm still expecting that to fall off a little bit. But I did pick the Orioles to win the division. I still think that'll happen. The Rays are always interesting because people always expect them to not be good, and then somehow they end up being good. So I think they're going to start to catch fire a little bit as the season goes on. I think they are actually underperforming a little bit right now for what they can do with their roster. It's the Tampa Bay Rays. They always somehow manage to find a way to make the playoffs, and I don't expect that to be anything different. So I think it's been interesting the way that things have played out in the division so far in this first couple months of the season here, but I don't think the standings will be what they are today when the season is over.
Yeah, I mean, the Rays are just they're a bizarre machine. They're like a zombie film that every time you think you've knocked them off, like they got Tyler Alexander off waivers from the Tigers. They just said bye. And he nearly threw a perfect game the other day. I'm just like, of course he did. Of course he did. Yeah. You take a look right now, Zach Eflin's on the IL, Chris Davinsky's on the IL, a bunch of like pitchers with major league experience are on the IL right now. They have a bunch of injuries, and Arozarena has been bad this year, and yet they're still hovering around 500, which is scary because you would think that all of that would equal them, basically being like the White Sox at this point. And they're around 500, which means some of those players are going to get healthy. And they just always make me nervous.
Yeah, me too. And that's why I'm saying I definitely think we need to keep an eye on them moving forward. I expect them to kind of make a bit of a surge. They didn't start off the way that they wanted to, for sure, but I don't really anticipate that continuing. I still think at the end of the day, the Rays are better than what their record shows right now.
Right. I mean, and if you had told me that the Yankees were going to lose Garrett Cole for at least the first third of the season, I mean, next week's is Memorial Day, which is the 1/3 mark, and Aaron Judge was going to go on a horrific slump in April, I would have said, oh, they're at 500. And I mean, obviously the big thing they did was bring in Juan Soto, or as I like to call the revenge of Scott Boras, who everyone said, well, Scott Boras couldn't get a big client. He doesn't have it anymore. Oh, really? I'm going to have a 26-year-old MVP in his prime going to free agency. I demand all the money. And he has had a positive effect on Stanton and a couple other players. But Cortez has been pitching very well. Stroman's been a good pickup. But the biggest thing is Rodon, who was worthless last year, has been terrific. Clark Schmidt's been good. And Clay Holmes, say for yesterday's calamity, has been terrific. Their pitching has been outstanding for the Yankees.
Yeah, and you look at that situation on paper and you say this could be a disaster waiting to happen. Lots of pitchers on this, roster, especially in their starting rotation, who could just crumble at any time. And I'm still waiting for that to happen. Rodon especially, I still don't trust that he'll be able to stay fully healthy and be able to be as reliable all season long as they're looking for him to be. But I'm pretty impressed by the way that they've been able to pitch as well as they have all season. However, I still don't feel like it's sustainable. And I think that their pitching is going to start to get exposed more and more as the season goes on. I just think they're on a winning tear right now and everybody's just playing well.
All right, now let's get to the other one too, which is, I mean, Baltimore is obviously, we all picked them and they've been excellent. It's been so far as planned. They're only reason why they're not in first is because the Yankees have been excellent. It's not really been a reflection on them. But a few years ago when the Blue Jays lost the division series, or the wild card series, to Seattle, I remember thinking, well, Schneider, who was the interim manager at the time, said he better update his LinkedIn page because he's going to need a new job soon. And they brought him back last year, and the Blue Jays managed themselves out of the playoffs again. And I said, well, obviously they're getting a new manager now, and he's still there. And you have a team that has, players coming who should be coming in their prime. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is 25. Bo Bichette's 26. Alejandro Kirk is 25. Barrios is only 30. And you have all these players, and now they're talking they're going to sell. They're going to be selling. And if anything makes me say, are you kidding me? If I were a Toronto fan, I'd be saying, this is when you should be making the push for a pennant. And They have to make a managerial change. If nothing else, they can't end the Vlad Guerrero Jr. era in Toronto with at least try. I mean, they've had 2 years of this guy, and the management has just spiraled out, and it's stunning to me that this team is now, well, maybe we can get something in exchange for, what? They should be trying to win the pennant at this point.
Yeah, their roster is so incredibly stacked with talent. And it's amazing to me that every single year since they've had this core that they have now, they've underachieved, because that really is what it is. Because when you have a roster with that much talent, people would expect you to make a deep playoff run. And I've been expecting it from them for a while. And now it gets to the point where it's like, what are they even doing? Because they have all this talent, and it feels like all that talent is going to waste because they are not able to perform at the level that they should be performing at. Because if you look at that team on paper, that should be one of the best teams in baseball based on the talent level and the caliber of players they have over there. So it's amazing to me even that they've been in this same situation for the last few years now, where it feels like they should be a very dangerous team and they just are not. So obviously they need to look internally and say, what's really the problem here? Because to me, it's not really the makeup of players on the roster.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come back and we're going to talk finally about the Red Sox. Hey, Gabby, are you familiar with, where is it? There it is. It's PrizePicks. PrizePicks. I bet you've heard of PrizePicks. You're in the Locked On Podcast Network here. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more than or less than or 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. One of them is going to be, let's see who they have right now. They have Joe Adell of the Angels. They have him more than 0.5 total bases, which tells you a lot about how specific some of these picks are and how potent that Angels lineup is. I'm going to say he's going to have more than half a total base. Call me crazy on that. Call me daring. But that's why we go to PrizePicks and get in on the playoff action. The Celtics are, who's left? The Pacers are, the Timberwolves are, the Mavericks are. Hey, you get on this and you get 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best basketball players take the game to a new level during the NBA postseason. You got quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. They offer weekly promotions, special offers, and the biggest moments of sports, like when the Red Sox play the Rays. PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits for your account this basketball season. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Let me say that again. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to 100 tomatoes. It's highly encouraged for me to tell you, pick more, pick less. Do you know why? It's that easy. It's PrizePicks. Hey, where is your hub for learning all about sports and the sports stories? Make your switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on the YouTubes and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And your team very well may be the Boston Red Sox, which is why you're seeing Gabby Hurlbut on your screen. Gabby, the Red Sox didn't make a big, massive acquisition this offseason. And with that, a lot of Red Sox fans got the pitchforks and torches and wanted to burn down Fenway Park, or maybe ask the Braves to move back to Boston. They're hovering around 500 right now. And I actually think they're better than I thought they were going to be. And they're certainly more competitive than I thought they were going to be. What are your thoughts on how this team is unfolding right now?
Yeah, I think for one, people were frustrated during the offseason because of the fact that they made it out to seem like they were going to have this big offseason and then they didn't. So people felt like they were misled in terms of the expectations of what this team would look like going into it. But one of the biggest things to me is the starting pitching. Nobody expected the starting pitching to be as good as it has been. And as a collective starting rotation right now, they have one of the best ERAs in baseball as a starting rotation. And that's something that's been huge that has kept them in games, because there were a couple pitchers on this rotation that I was excited to watch this season, but I did not expect all of them collectively to pitch as well as they are. And Andrew Bailey definitely deserves credit for that. I mean, him coming in here and how desirable of a person he was in the offseason, a lot of teams wanted him to bring him onto their staff, and the Red Sox got him. And he has a history of turning pitchers into really, really solid arms down the road. And we've seen him do that before. So him coming into Boston and the approach that he's taking with this starting rotation to really maximize their potential has been an absolute game changer for this Red Sox team right now. And that to me is the biggest reason why they are where they're at right now. And you also have to think about the fact that they've had a lot of injuries already this season. Lots of players who haven't been able to play have missed extended periods of time. Trevor Story being out for the entire season is a big problem defensively for the Red Sox. And the fact that they're still lingering around this 500 mark and they're not that far out of a wild card spot right now, considering the fact that they haven't been fully healthy, to me should be seen as a win more than anything if you're a fan and you're looking at this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, take a look. I mean, Tanner Houck has been he's an all-star this year. I mean, he's been terrific.
Unbelievable.
Not only does he have a microscopic ER, I don't look at win-loss record. I don't think win-loss records tells you anything anymore, especially when they're pulling pitchers 2 times through the rotation and everything like that. And someone who comes in and pitches 2/3 of an inning will want. I'm convinced someone will get 41 wins. I'm 41 wins out of some middle reliever who finished the season with 60 total innings pitched. But Houck, if you look at it, I mean, he has a good strikeout to walk ratio. He gives them 6.5 innings per start. The bullpen doesn't get worn down. It's like, heaven forbid you let pitchers stretch out so you don't wear down the bullpen. Crawford's been excellent. Pavetta's been good. Criswell, wherever the hell he came from. I mean, of the group, the one with the highest ERA is Bello, who was the one who I thought was going to be the ace of the damn team. And, Whitlock's injury stinks because he was pitching well. But, I mean, that's a good starting 5. And if you're starting a good pitcher every day, you have a chance of winning more often than not.
Yeah, that's the most important thing to me when it comes to distinguishing you between being a competitive team and not being one, is that you have the pitching, because the offense will come. Yes, the Red Sox offense has been very inconsistent this year, and that's something that I'd like to see change moving forward. Right. But they have the pitching to do it for sure. And with Tanner Houck, that was a big problem for him in the past, was being able to pitch deep into games. And that was something that he struggled with. And once he saw the order the third time through was when he started to fall apart. And that's really not happening anymore this year. He's increased his pitch arsenal a lot. He has a couple more pitches that he's been utilizing, and it's helped him to succeed on the mound a lot more. And Crawford, I mean, he definitely showed glimpses last year of what he can really do, but I did not expect his growth to be this big, this quickly. So that's really promising for a Red Sox rotation that going into the season had a ton of question marks.
It's funny, when the season was starting, there was rumors of would Kenley Jansen be dealt. And I was all for it for this reason. I felt like, well, we're probably not going to contend this year, so why not try to get something out of your closer? And also because despite being a native New Englander with a long history of following the Red Sox, I live in Los Angeles County right now, and I've seen close up Kenley Jansen, who has piled up a lot of saves in his career. He's had a fine career. No one's saying he's not had a fine career, but holy cow, have I seen a lot of moments of Kenley Jansen walking off the field with his head down during a playoff game. And I was like, I even said on a podcast a few years ago, back when Jansen was still a Dodger, I said, Jansen gets about 35 to 40 saves a year, and somehow I've not seen any of them. It just seems like every time he's come on there, it's like, and oh, the game is tied. Oh, the game is tied. And so I was like, yeah, he's not. The Dodgers won the World Series when they handed someone else the ball to clinch the World Series and not Jansen. But now I think having if you're going to have a decent pitching staff, look at Jansen still isn't lights out in my opinion. He still isn't a can't miss closer. But I don't mind having someone who strikes out more than an inning a batter and isn't going to at least wither on the mound to support this good, solid young rotation.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps that he's a proven closer because we've seen scenarios in the past where the Red Sox have tried to experiment with the closing role and they didn't actually have a defined closer, and that completely backfired on them and didn't really work out. So where the Red Sox are right now, yes, like you said, Kenley is not the sharpest that he's ever been right now. And a lot of times it is an absolute roller coaster when he's out there pitching because you don't really know what's going to happen with that inning. But he is getting the job done more often than not. So you still have to think about the fact that he is a closer and that's what he does. And I'd rather have him out there than somebody who doesn't have the closing experience with a team that has a shot to compete this year. So at the end of the day, I am happy that he didn't get moved. I do think that situation could be reevaluated though towards the trade deadline, depending on where the Red Sox are at that point.
One of the funniest things is you think about the last time the Red Sox won the World Series, their closer was basically another version of it, which was Kimbrel, who, yes, has had a long career, piled up lots of saves, but every time you notice they had to bring a starting pitcher to close out the World Series because every time Kimbrel was on the mound, you're like, oh dear God, oh dear God, oh dear God. Like I take my blood pressure during the game. And I was longing for, I'll tell you, all I was thinking for was, why can't we have Koji? Why can't we have Koji? Because Koji Uehara, whenever he came in, say for that one home run he led up to Lobaton, it's like, can't miss. Everything's okay. Don't worry about a thing. It's Koji time. You know, we were spoiled with.
Get it done.
We were spoiled in 04 with Folk, 07 with Papelbon, and anyone who trashes Papelbon, he was lights out in 07. And Koji, who was just absolutely, you couldn't get a hit off of him. And now Kimbrel is like, oh dear Lord, God, please throw a strike. And then Jansen is, oh God, please, just what will it take for you to get the number 8 batter out?
Yeah, well, I'm like, I just want this to be an easy inning, and
it's just 1, 2, 3. That's all I want. I want a Koji special. We come back. I want to talk a little bit about the lineup and why I actually feel good about things. Hey, let's talk a little bit about our friends from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps you ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, boom, roof racks, got them. Exhaust kits, what? LED headlights, and even more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. eBay Guarantee Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride and your ride or die every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you know what you're doing? You're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available for U.S. customers. Here's a helpful reminder that Locked On has begun the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. We're here with Gabby Hurlbut of Locked On Red Sox. And I'm your pal Sully, Locked On MLB. And let's talk a little bit about the Red Sox. Their lineup, Rafael Devers has decided to play like a monster the last couple of games. It's been fabulous. It's been absolutely fabulous. And they have, I look at, you look at the lineup and, Duran is a young player. Abreu is a young player. We forget that Devers is not yet 28 years old at this point. He's not like he's not an old guy.
No.
Cedar Rafaela has some power and is great defensively. And Connor Wong has been terrific this year. Not worth Mookie Betts, but still, still terrific. I like the fact that, and by the way, the Tyler O'Neill move has worked out really great. And Red Sox fans, I don't hear one person complain about the Chris Sale trade. We all thought Chris Sale was cooked. We all thought he was cooked, and nobody saw this comeback coming. And who knows? Maybe Sale will be hurt by the time Vaughn Grisham finally turns the corner. But I like the fact that they have a bunch of young players that you could point to, write in ink in their lineup, and go, try to do well with them in 24. And maybe when we get to the offseason next year, then you can put in a couple of big names to fill in the gaps as opposed to trying to rebuild through free agency. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's become pretty clear that that's the Red Sox goal, is to establish their core of young players that they want to develop here, that they want to be able to contribute in the long term. And when it comes to this makeup in the lineup, then they'll reevaluate in the offseason and say, these guys are worth keeping around because they're going to be part of that core moving forward. And then we can build around them and add the missing pieces we need. And when it comes to Vaughn Grisham, I think there's a ton of upside with him. Yes, he started off slow this year in his return from the injured list, but he never got a spring training because he spent the entire offseason on the injured list. And then he finally comes back. He's ready to come back and then gets the flu and is out for another few days. So then he finally makes his return, and he has not been off to the start that people wanted him to be. But we have to cut the kid some slack for all of those reasons that I just said. I think there's a ton of upside with him. The Braves really liked him. It was hard for them to part ways with him, but they are in win now mode. So I get wanting to bring in a guy like Chris Sale, who is proven and has won a championship before with the Boston Red Sox. So for them, it made sense to make that move. Vaughn Grisham, I think, is a special talent, somebody who is going to be able to contribute. And although in this specific moment in time, we're not immediately seeing the effects of what he can do, I think he's going to be a really powerful force in this lineup beyond this season. And I think there's a ton of upside that the Red Sox saw in him. And he's going to be one of those pieces that we see the Red Sox build around. And the other thing too, is it solves the second base problem, because the Red Sox didn't really have a legitimate second baseman. And last year there was a lot of platooning going on with having a couple different guys play second base all season long. So this prevents that, because now you have your second baseman of the future who moving forward can play that position for you. So I really liked that move. I think it was time for the Red Sox to part ways with Sale regardless. And this season he's having right now, I don't really see that lasting. I think it might be a one-year thing for him. But I'm really happy with the return the Red Sox did get. I like Grisham. I think he has a lot that he can offer. And Rafaela is interesting. He hasn't been the most productive at the plate, but defensively, he provides so much to this team that the Red Sox think that's worth keeping around, which I definitely agree with, because the Red Sox have had defensive issues over the last year or so, that now they're bringing in a guy who can play defense well, both in the infield and in the outfield. It's hard to justify not wanting to keep a guy like that on the roster. And to me, even if he doesn't perform super well offensively, that alone to me, it makes him valuable enough for me to want to keep him here, because they have other guys in the lineup who can hit and can be those guys offensively that can provide that firepower. I just think Rafaela and his versatility defensively is too valuable to let him go. Duran obviously has been having a good season, as I thought he would. He had a great season last year. I thought he would pick up from that again this year, and his speed is something that's so noteworthy. because he's constantly stretching singles into doubles
Yes.
or
Yes.
making his way around the bases quicker than a lot of other hitters. So to opposing pitchers, it's their worst nightmare letting him on base, because a lot of the time the chances are that he's going to score just because of his speed alone. So that's something I really like that Duran provides to this lineup. And Connor Wong, nobody expected him to be as good as he's been this year offensively. That's for sure. I really like his arm. He is a good defensive catcher, but he's bringing the offense this year. I'm wondering if
Yep.
he's going to be able to maintain that. That's something I'm looking for the rest of the season. But he's been providing some offense for a team that offensively has been very up and down this year. And Devers, I mean, we knew he was going to have a good season, but hopefully he continues on this tear, because if anything, that's just been super fun to watch.
Yeah, and by the way, back on Duran for just a second, having that speed and having that unpredictability, I mean, it reminded me when the Royals won the World Series in 2015 with all that team speed. One of the things you saw is it put teams back on their heels, and you saw teams make mistakes, especially the Mets, who were a fine team, got to the World Series. I thought they were going to win it, but the speed sometimes gets people on edge, gets your defense a little bit out of sync, especially if, like, should I be covering second or should I be not? It's not always about the stolen bases. It's about sort of the domino effect that has on everything. Last question for you, Gabby. What would be success for this year for the Red Sox?
Honestly, I think success to me would be getting into the playoffs, not
Mm.
even making a long playoff run, just making it there. Because if they make it there, that already has far surpassed expectations that at all that people had for this team this season. And that to me would indicate that this path they're heading on has promise, and that this core that they've started to put together has promise, and they have some talented players in the farm system that are lingering, that are going to be coming up likely in the next couple of years too, that can also add to what the Red Sox are doing. So to me, if they squeak into the playoffs in a wild card spot, that to me would be enough to say the Red Sox did more than people thought they would do this year. And it would get me very excited for the future of what the Boston Red Sox are trying to do. And it would hopefully change the mindset of some of the fans moving forward in terms of a direction that they're trying to go in after this season.
Mine is even less than yours. I want them to just be still in contention in September. I want meaningful games in September. But I also, almost more importantly, to see that Wong and Devers and Rafaela and Duran and Devers and the pitching staff are all still contributing. So we could take a effective and competitive September and build upon that for 2025. Well, Gabby Hurlbut, thanks so much for being part of doing this crossover of Locked On MLB and Locked On Red Sox. Where can people follow your show?
Yeah, you can follow Locked On Red Sox on your favorite podcast platform. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube as well if you want to interact with other Red Sox fans in the comments. YouTube is the place for that. I also highly recommend following the show on Twitter at @LO_Red Sox. Lots of fun conversations to be had about this team. And if they lose a really bad game, those tweets may not be as happy, but that is the nature of being a Red Sox fan. That is why we are all here, because we are passionate about baseball and passionate about our favorite team. But if you are looking for another way to connect with other Red Sox fans and stay in the loop on what's going on with the Boston Red Sox, follow Locked On Red Sox on Twitter. You can give me show ideas. What do you want to hear about related to the Boston Red Sox? We can go back and forth on Devers continuing to make Red Sox history, because that's fun. And you can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Monday through Friday, I am here talking all things Red Sox with you. You definitely will not want to miss it.
All right, we'll do a trivia question here. We had mentioned Jonathan Papelbon, who is the all-time saves leader in Red Sox history. What was the name of the pitcher that Jonathan Papelbon passed to get the all-time saves record? And that pitcher still holds the record for most appearances by a Red Sox pitcher. That's your trivia question. What Red Sox pitcher has the most appearances as a pitcher and at one time held their all-time save mark? Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking positively about the Red Sox. Hey, how about that? With Gabby Hurlbut, this has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.